people who play RTS games, so people who play RTS campaigns tend to know that the campaigns themselves do not often require anywhere close to the same amount of skill that, you know, like finding success in a campaign is, not only is it just generally easier, if you want to use a broad term like that, it's also testing completely different skills than what multiplayer does. And that to me is the main issue. Like, I'm all for a campaign potentially being easier than another campaign that later down the line, or easier than multiplayer at a super high level or whatever. Like, I don't think that you would have to, I don't know that I would ever make a campaign. I'm not ruling it out, but I don't know that I'd ever make a campaign that could only be beaten if you were as skilled as like a top pro player or something. Because I would like to be able to beat my own campaigns, and I'm not that good. So I don't know if that would ever happen. But the main idea that I'm getting at here is that what bothers me more about other campaigns in RTS games is that they just don't test the same skills at all. It's not that they are too easy, because yeah, maybe I'm a higher skill level than, like, obviously I'm going to be way higher skill level than the tutorial AI. But the idea is that if I still have to play an RTS to win, that's satisfactory to me, because at least I have to show that I can harvest resources and I can ascend up the tech tree, and I can, you know, put together a unit composition, and I can attack and scout and defeat my opponent with tactics and stuff. Like, I'm doing all of the things that I would have to do against a more skilled player. I just happen to be playing against a less skilled player in this case. And that to me is the key distinction. So all of the missions in Cosmonarchy will be designed around the idea that no matter what you do, you will have to prove that you can play an RTS to at least some degree of skill in order to claim victory. And the tutorials basically say that that's not actually as scary as it sounds, because here's an example of a case where it's actually quite easy to use the mechanics and the systems of an RTS and claim victory using them. And then you can kind of just scale that up with competence. So you can start doing that to, you know, with more other regencies, other tech trees, other compositions. So maybe you have an AI ally, and now you've got to keep track of more things on the minimap and stuff. So complexity will scale, and that will naturally increase the difficulty, while also maybe putting you in situations where the terrain isn't as favorable, or the AI are a little bit faster, or whatever the case may be. Well, not only do you not have the opportunity to expand, but in most RTS campaigns, custom or otherwise, at least for Brood War, and I would say for a lot of other RTS games out there, the AI doesn't expand. Your opponents don't expand. It does feel like there's a lot of just lackadaisical sort of, like, the AI is fed money, they're playing by different rules, they start out with a bunch of units. Like, what I'm designing around and what I go into in the immersive section of the Cosmonarchy page, starting conditions, team compositions, and player objectives vary between maps, but fairness is front and center in the content's design. If you are skilled enough to match your myriad opponents, you can always win through conventional RTS gameplay without ever experiencing arbitrary tech restrictions that limit player expression, or suffering through slapstick pace changes that remove entire aspects of the gameplay loop. Obviously, these are referencing events that are pretty commonplace in Brood War campaigns, especially Blizzard's own campaigns, where they would just remove entire bits of the tech tree, or send you through a micro mission, a commando mission, where you don't even have a base, so you're not even playing the same game. Like, I don't think you need to change the pace by completely changing the genre of game you're experiencing. I think you can change the pace in a campaign by making it so that you've got more enemies in the next mission, or a bigger map in the next mission, or a map that's maybe built more around islands, so it requires more transport or other means of movement or something like that. You know, there's like a ton of different ways to change the pace while still keeping it grounded in RTS gameplay. And that's what I think, unfortunately, no other RTS game I've ever played has actually done. So... And I have played a lot, admittedly. So. Yeah, you know, the funniest thing about StarCraft 2 is that the latest scenarios I think they've released are those co-op ones. And the co-op ones are just a straight formula. Expand once, and then deal with waves of enemies that are spawned in, to the point where you can wipe the entire map and delete the enemy bases, as you often do on even the highest difficulty. And the AI will still just spawn waves in. Like, there are just triggers that spawn waves and waypoint them into your base. It's like, okay. Great. Very good experience. It's like, there's never any sense of parity between a player and an AI in single player or cooperative RTS content. And that's something that I definitely want to change with Zabalba and Cosmonarchy. It's something that I definitely think is long overdue to change.